I'm a total Sonic the Hedgehog fan, much like everyone else. I like the newer games, but I don't mind playing the classics. I don't think I've ever played glitchy or hacked games before, though I don't think I want to play any after the experience that I had. It started on a nice summer afternoon. I was playing Sonic Unleashed. I like how you get to explore the town in it, until I noticed out of my peripheral vision that the mailman had arrived and put something in my mailbox, as usual, and left. I paused my game to go see what I got in the mail. The only thing in the mailbox was a CD case for computers and a note. I took a look inside. I took it inside. I looked at the note first and realized that it was from my dear friend Kyle. Let's just call him that. Whom I hadn't heard from in 2 weeks. I know that because I recognized his handwriting, though what was weird is how it looked. It looked badly written and scratchy, and somewhat difficult to read, as if Kyle was having a hard time writing it down, and did it in a hurry. This is what he wrote. Tom, I can't take it anymore. I had to get rid of this thing somehow before it was too late. And I was hoping that you'd do it for me. I can't do it. He's after me, and if you don't destroy the CD, he'll come for you too. He's too fast for me. Please, Tom, destroy this godforsaken disc before he comes after you too. It's too late for me. Destroy the disc, and you'll destroy him, but do it quick, otherwise he'll catch you. Don't even play the game. It's what he wants. Just destroy it. Please. Well, that was certainly weird. Even though Kyle is my best friend and I haven't seen him in 2 weeks, I didn't do what he asked me. I didn't think that a simple gaming disc would do anything bad to him. I mean, after all, it's just a game, right? I was wrong. Anyway, I looked at the disc and it looked like an ordinary computer CDR disc, except it had black marker on it written Sonic.Exe. And it was much unlike Kyle's handwriting, meaning that he must have gotten it from somebody else, like a pawn shop or eBay. And when I saw Sonic on the writing of the CD, I was actually excited and wanted to play it since I'm a big Sonic fan. I went up to my room, turned on my computer, put the disc in, and installed the game. When the title screen popped up, I noticed that it was the first Sonic game, and I was like, awesome, because, like I said earlier, I like the classics. And the first thing I noticed that was out of place was when I pressed start. There was a split second when I saw the title image turn into something different, something that I now consider horrifying, before it cut to black. I remember what the image looked like in that split second before the game cut to black. The sky had darkened. The title emblem was rusted, ruined. The Sega 1991 was now Sega 666. And the water had turned red, like blood. Except, it looked so realistic. But the freakiest thing was that, in that split second, Sonic, his eyes were pitch black and bleeding, with 2 glowing red dots staring right at me. And his smile had stretched wider, up to the edge of his face. I was rather disturbed about that image when I saw it, though I figured that it was just a glitch and forgot about it. And after it cut to black, it stayed like that for about 10 seconds or so, and then another weird thing happened. The save file select from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 popped up, and I was like, what the fuck? What's this doing here in the first Sonic game? Anyway, then I noticed something off in the background was the dark, cloudy sky of the bad Stardust Speedway level from Sonic CD. And there were only 3 save files. The music was that creepy Caverns of Winter music from Earthbound, and only it was extended and seemed to have been in reverse. And the image from the save file, where you see a preview of the level that you were just on, is just red static for all 3 files. What freaked me out more was the character select. It showed only Tails, Knuckles, and, to my surprise, Dr. Robotnik. Now, I was sure that something was up. I mean, how can you play as Robotnik in a classic Sonic game, for crying out loud? And that's when I realized that this wasn't a glitchy game, it was a hacked game. Yeah, it definitely looked hacked. I mean, it was really creepy. But as a smart gamer, I wasn't scared. Or at least, I tried not to be. I told myself that it was just a hacked game. There's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, shaking off the creeped out feeling, I picked file 1, chose Tails, and when I selected and got started, the game froze for like 5 seconds. I heard this creepy, pixelated laugh that sounded like an awful lot like the Kefka guy from Final Fantasy before cutting to black. The screen stayed black for about 10 seconds or more, and then it showed the typical level title thing, except the simplistic shapes were different shades of red, and the text showed only Hill, Act 1. The screen faded in, and the level title vanished, revealing Tails in the Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1. The music was different, though. It sounded like a peaceful melody in reverse. Anyway, I started playing, and Tails started running like you would in any other classic Sonic game. What was odd was that as Tails was running along the level, there was nothing but flat ground and a few trees for like 5 minutes. That was when the peaceful music started to lower down into slow, deep tones, very slowly as they kept going. I suddenly saw something, and I stopped to see what it was. It was one of the small animals lying dead on the ground, bleeding. That was when the music started to slow down. Tails had a shocked and saddened look on his face, that I'd never seen him with before. So I had to move along, and he kept that worried look on his face. As he kept moving, I saw more dead animals as Tails just moved past them, looking more and more worried. As the music lowers, he moves past more dead animals. I was shocked to see how they all died. They looked like someone killed them in a rather gruesome way. A squirrel was hanged on a tree, with what appeared to be his entrails hanging out. A bunny had all 4 of his limbs torn off, and a duck had his eyes gouged out and his throat slit. I felt sick to my stomach when I saw this massacre, and apparently so did Tails. After a few more seconds, there was no more animals, and the music seemed to have stopped. I still kept Tails continuing. After a minute passed after the music had stopped, Tails was running up a hill, and then he stopped. It wasn't until I saw why. Sonic was there on the other side of the screen, with his back against Tails, with his eyes closed. Tails looked happy to see Sonic, but then his smile faltered, obviously noticing that Sonic wasn't responding to him. If not acting as if he was totally oblivious to Tails' presence. Tails walked slowly towards Sonic, and I noticed that I wasn't even pressing my keyboard to make him move. So this had to be some sort of cutscene? Suddenly, I began to have a growing feeling of dread as Tails walked closer to Sonic to get his attention. I felt that Tails was in danger and something bad was going to happen. I heard faint static growing louder as Tails was but inches away from Sonic and stopped and stuck his hand out to touch him. That foreboding feeling in my gut was growing stronger, and I felt the urge to tell Tails to get away from Sonic as the static grew louder. And suddenly, in a split second, I saw Sonic's eyes open, and they were black with those glowing red dots. just like the title image, though there wasn't a smile. When that happened, the screen turned to black and the static sound was off. It stayed black for about 7 seconds. Then white text appeared, forming a message, saying, "Hello. Do you want to play with me?" At this point, I was creeped out. I didn't want to continue with the game, but my curiosity got the better of me. When I was taken to a different level, with the level title now saying, "Hide and Seek." This time, I was in the Angel Island level from Sonic 3, and it looked like everything was on fire. Tails looked as though he was scared out of his wits this time. He actually looked at me and made frantic gestures to me as if he wanted me to get out of the area that he was in as fast as possible. I was starting to get freaked out by this. I mean, Tails was actually breaking the fourth wall, trying to tell me to get him out of there. So I pressed down on the arrow key as hard as I could, and made him run as fast as he could. A pixelated version of that creepy theme when you meet Shadow at the Ark, as Robotnik from Sonic Adventure 2 was playing as I made Tails trek through the desolated forest, trying to help him escape from whatever he was trying to run from. Suddenly I heard that creepy laugh again, that awful Kefka laugh. Right after 10 seconds had passed, I helped Tails run through the forest, and then I started seeing flashes of Sonic popping up everywhere on the screen, again with those black eyes and red dots. The music changed in that suspenseful, drowning jingle as I heard Sonic behind Tails slowly gaining up on him, flying. Sonic wasn't running, he was actually flying. The flying pose his sprite was making looked very similar to Metal Sonic's flying pose in Sonic CD, except he was just Sonic, and he had the black and red eyes again. Only this time, he had the most deranged-looking grin on his face. He looked as though he was enjoying the torment he was giving that poor little fox as he gained up on him. Suddenly, when Tails tripped, another cutscene. The music stopped. Sonic vanished. Tails laid there, started crying for maybe 15 seconds. The screen was rather upsetting to watch, and I kind of teared up myself. But then Sonic appeared, right in front of Tails, and he looked up in horror. Blood started to come down those blackened eyes of Sonic's, as his grin slowly grew from his face. As he looked down at the horrified fox, I could do nothing but watch. Just in a split second, Sonic lunged at Tails. Right before the screen went black, there was a loud screeching noise that lasted 5 seconds. The text returned, only this time. It said, "You're too slow. Want to try again?" And then that god-awful laugh came back. I was so shocked by what happened. I mean, did Sonic just murder Tails? No, he couldn't have. I mean, he and Tails are supposed to be best friends, right? I mean, why did Sonic do that to him? I shook off the shock as I was brought back to the character select. The save file that had Tails was different. Tails was no longer in the box itself, but the TV screen, which was flickering with that red static, and Tails' expression scared me. His eyes were black and bleeding. His orange fur had gone black, and he had an expression of anguish on his face. Trying to ignore it, I picked Knuckles instead. The laugh came on again, and the screen cut to black. Stayed there for another 10 seconds, and this time, the level said, "You can't run." I was really freaked out by now. I couldn't really tell if it was a glitch or a hack or some kind of sick, twisted joke or anything really, but despite my fear of what happened next, I kept playing. The next level looked much different. It had the ground of the Scrap Brain Zone, but the sky background looked like the main menu. It had the dark reddish cloud sky. But it was the music that creeped me out the most. It sounded like Geiger's theme, right after you beat Pokey and Earthbound. I also noticed that Knuckles looked afraid, just like Tails did, though not as much. More, rather, he looked a little unnerved. He broke the fourth wall just like Tails did. Looked as if he wasn't sure about going on. But I made him move anyway. He ran down the straight pathway in this dark level, and as he did, the screen started to flicker, red static a couple times, and then that maddening laugh again. Then after a few seconds of running, I noticed several blood stains on the metallic ground. I felt a growing sense of fear again, thinking something horrible was going to happen to Knuckles. He looked nauseated, walking down this blood-stained road, but I still kept him going. Suddenly, as Knuckles ran, Sonic appeared right in front of him with those black eyes. When the static vanished, showing nothing but black screen, with text saying, "Found you." I was scared now. Sonic found Knuckles already? I mean, what's going on? Anyway, red static came up again, and then I was back to the level, and Knuckles looked like he was panicking, and Sonic was nowhere to be found. This time, that high-pitched squealing from the Silent Hill 1's final boss was playing. Was this some kind of boss battle with Sonic? I hope to God that it wasn't, honestly. Suddenly, Sonic appeared right behind Knuckles in what appeared to be pixelated black smoke. It made Knuckles turn and then punch at Sonic, but Sonic vanished in black pixelated smoke before I could even land a hit. That terrible laugh went on again. And Sonic appeared behind Knuckles again, and I made him punch at him again, and Sonic vanished, again laughing. Knuckles was panicking even more now, and I felt like I was going crazy. Sonic was practically playing with us. He was playing a sick, twisted little mind game with me. Another cutscene played, as Knuckles fell to his knees and clutched his head, sobbing. I felt his agony. Sonic was actually driving us both crazy. And then, in a split second, Sonic lunged at Knuckles, and the screen went black with another distorted screeching noise that lasted for at least 3 seconds. Another text message appeared. So many souls to play with. So little time. Would you agree? What the hell? Just what's going on? I started to think that Sonic was actually trying to talk to me through the game, but I was too scared to think that. I was brought back to the main menu, and this time the second file box had Knuckles on the TV screen, and his red fur had darkened to a reddish gray. His dreadlocks were dripping with blood, his eyes were black and bleeding too, and he had a look of sadness on his face. I began to think that those are the actual characters trapped in those TV screens on the save files, but I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. So I shut off the game. Took a break. I took a nap. I wish that I hadn't, because I then began to have the most disturbing nightmare. I was in pitch black darkness, though I was under the light given off by a lamp that hung high above my head, and I could hear the cries of Knuckles and Tails nearby. They were saying stuff like, "Help us!" and "Why did you give us to him?" and "Run away before he gets you too." Their cries died out as I then heard Sonic laugh his laugh. It sounded like the distorted Kefka laugh. "You're a lot of fun to play with, kid. Just like your friend Kyle." Though he didn't last long. I was scared and looking around for the source of his voice. "Won't be long until you join him. All my other friends." I saw him walking towards me, flickering in and out in several directions. "You can't run, kid. You're in my world now, just like the others." When he grabbed me and I saw his bleeding black and red eyes, grinning face, I woke up with a fright. After a couple of hours, I decided to continue playing the game. I don't know why, but I had to know. I had to figure out why this was happening. So I turned on the computer, turned on the game, and selected Robotnik next. I still thought that was wacky playing as Robotnik, but anyway, the level title appeared again, and this time it said ... which I found really freaky. This time I was in some kind of hallway. It didn't really look like it was from any of the classic Sonic games, though it has the pixelated style. The floor was shiny and checkered, and the walls were a dark grayish purple with animated candlelights and a few dark bloodstains here and there. There was a dark red curtain hanging above the top part of the screen, and every 12 seconds or so the red curtain swayed very, very slowly. You can barely see it move. Robotnik didn't look entirely nervous like Tails and Sonic did, but he did have a suspicious look on his face, as if he was just a bit paranoid. He did a little animation when I just left him standing. He turned his head to the left, and then to the right, at least twice, and then shrugs at me, as if he has no idea where he was or what was going on. Even though I was scared out of my mind about what was going to happen, I had Robotnik continue onward. He did his usual running animation, when you've beaten him at the end of a classic Sonic game and you chase him, as we continued going through the hallway. And then I stop at a long flight of stairs leading downward. Now I was nervous. Even Robotnik seemed unsure of himself, though I pressed onward. As I led Robotnik down the stairs, I noticed that the walls have gotten darker and more reddish. The red torches are now an eerie blue. Then we landed onto another hallway. This one was no longer than the last one, or at least it felt like it. And then we headed down another flight of stairs. Down, down. This one was much longer. It took at least a full minute. And then I heard the horrid Kefka laugh again, and then the music slowly faded until it was quiet. As it did, the walls turned more dark red, and the torches were a black flame now. When Robotnik landed onto the third hallway, I noticed that he was now looking really creeped out, though he tried to hide it. I couldn't blame him. I was scared too. Suddenly, Sonic popped right in front of Robotnik, the same way he did with Knuckles. Then the red static. The red static lasted for about 15 seconds, and then it showed me a most unpleasant image. The image showed a hyper-realistic Sonic standing in the darkness where you can only see his face, while his head and torso faded into black. And when I say hyper-realistic, I mean like he looked so real. You could actually see the lines in his blue fur, as if you could actually feel the fur if you touched the screen. His face. His face. Oh God, he had the most horrifying smile I'd ever seen. And that's saying something, because I saw that image at the start of the game. His eyes are wide and black, and once again crying blood. And there were two small glowing red dots in those black eyes staring right at me, as if staring into my mind. His grin was wide and demonic, and it literally stretched to the side of his face like a Cheshire cat, except Sonic had fangs, very, very sharp fangs, much like the werehog's teeth, except more vicious looking, somewhat yellow. And from the look of it, he had stains of blood and small bits of flesh on his lips and fangs, as if he ate some animal. I stared at that gruesome image for a good 30 seconds, never taking my eyes off it. I felt as if he was actually looking at me, smiling at me. That face, it just took 10 seconds for it to etch itself into my brain for good. And then the screen flickered with red static again, 3 times, and on the 3rd time, I heard the laugh. Except this time, it sounded distorted, demonic even. It went back to the image again, except this time, there was the text. Though it was messed up, it was pretty much one of the most horrifying things I looked at since I had this game. I am God. It was when I read this message while looking at Sonic when it hit me. I realized right there and then, this Sonic was a monster, a pure, evil, sadistic, all-powerful, nightmarish, demented monster, and all his victims, including Tails, Knuckles, Robotnik, and possibly Kyle, are just his little toys, and the game is the very gateway into his chaotic, nightmarish world, and the very hell his victims are trapped in. Suddenly, in an actual split second, I screamed as Sonic lunged at the screen, screeching loudly with his hands wide open to an unnatural length, revealing nothing but a literally spiraling abyss of pure darkness, before the red static came on again, this time much louder and distorted. So loud that it hurt my ears. I yelled and grabbed at my head as the red static screeched for a good 7 seconds. And then it stopped. And showed nothing but a black screen. As I sat there, staring at the screen, one last message came up. Ready for round 2, Tom? The laugh now sounded more clear, as if Sonic was right behind me. And it played again 3 times as I looked at that text in shock and confusion. Then I got booted back to the main menu, and this time, the 3rd save file had a TV image of Robotnik in the same tormented state as Tails and Knuckles. Robotnik's skin turned all gray, his mustache drooped, had blackened. His glasses broken, and blood is coming from them, as he had a mere dead-like expression on his face. I looked at Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik, and I cried a bit. I pitied them for the agony that they were going through. They were forever trapped within the game, forever tormented by that horrid hedgehog, and always will be. And then the computer shut itself off, and I couldn't turn it back on no matter what I did. I just sat there for maybe a minute, horrified by what had just happened. Sonic is the very embodiment of evil. He tortures people who plays his games in more ways than one, and then, when he gets bored, he drags you into the game, literally drags you to hell, where he can play with you always, as his toy. I can't get the game out of my computer. I think it's stuck in there, but at least I managed to turn it back on now. And after I sat there for God knows how long, I heard a voice right behind me, like a whisper. Try to keep this interesting for me, Tom. see where the voice came from. And what I saw made me scream. Sitting on my bed, staring right at me, was a Sonic plush, smiling, with bloodstains under its eyes.